Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. USD JPY eases from 3-week tops, still well bid near 106.8085 region. ntvforex.com news ID BF58F2 4 minutes ago by Haresh Menghani. USD JPY continued gaining traction for the fourth consecutive session on Wednesday. The upbeat market mood undermined the safe haven JPY and remained supportive. The emergence of some fresh USD selling kept a lid on any strong gains for the major. The USD-JPY pair maintained its bid tone through the early North American session, albeit has retreated around 20 pips from 3-week tops set earlier this Wednesday. The pair added to this week's positive move and gained some follow-through traction for the fourth consecutive session on Wednesday. The uptick was sponsored by the prevalent risk on mood, which tends to undermine the Japanese yen's safe haven demand. The global risk sentiment remained well supported by the optimism over a vaccine for the highly contagious coronavirus diseases and hopes of a U.S. economic recovery. Bulls further took cues from some strong follow-through pickup in the U.S. Treasury bond yields. However, the impasse over the next round of the U.S. fiscal stimulus led to some fresh selling around the U.S. dollar and kept the USD-JPY pair near the 107.00 mark. The USD remained depressed despite Wednesday's hotter-than-expected U.S. consumer inflation figures. Meanwhile, the pair's inability to capitalize on the move warrants some caution for bullish traders and makes it prudent to wait for some strong follow-through buying before positioning for any further appreciating move. Technical levels to watch. USD JPY overview today. Last price 106.82 today. Daily change 0.33 today. Daily change percent 0.31 today. Daily open 106.49 NBSP trends. Daily SMA 20 106.13 daily SMA 50 106.94 daily SMA 100 107.31 daily SMA 200 108.16 NBSP levels. Previous daily high 106.68, previous daily low 105.92, previous weekly high 106.47, previous weekly low 105.3, previous monthly high 108.16, previous monthly low 104.19, daily Fibonacci 38.2%, 106.39 daily Fibonacci 61.8%, 106.21 daily pivot point S1 106.05 daily. Pivot point S2 105.61 daily. Pivot point S3 105.29 daily. Pivot point R1 106.81 daily. Pivot point R2 107.12 daily. Pivot point R3 107.57 NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. USEIA crude oil stocks change at 4.5 million in week ending August 7. http ntvforex.com news ID DCA1E3 4 minutes ago by Aaron Senghezer. Crude oil NBSP stocks. NBSP change in the NBSP. US NBSP was 4.5 million barrels in the week ending August 7, the weekly report published by the U.S. Energy Information Administration EIA revealed on Wednesday. This reading came in lower than the market expectation for a decrease of 3.2 million barrels. Market reaction. Crude oil prices continue to push higher after this report, and the barrel of West Texas Intermediate was last seen gaining 2.2% on the day at $42.50. Additional takeaways. US NBSP crude oil refinery inputs averaged 14.7 million barrels per day during the week ending August 7, 2020, which was 21,000 barrels per day more than the previous week's average. US NBSP crude oil imports averaged 5.6 million barrels per day last week, down by 389,000 barrels per day from the previous week. Total products supplied over the last 4-week period averaged 18.5 million barrels a day, down by 14.3% from the same period last year. NBSP over the past 4 weeks, motor gasoline product supplied averaged 8.7 million barrels a day, down by 10.2% from the same period last year. NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Binance Coin Technical Analysis BNB/USD sees a strong bounce from daily 26 EMA and itVää eyeing up $24 against ntvforex.com news ID 71FD91 3 minutes ago. BNB/USD is up by more than 5% in the last few hours after defending the daily 26 EMA 2 times in a row. BNB is back trading above the daily 12 EMA as well and eyeing up $24. Binance Coin had a significant drop on August 11 down to $20.60. Bulls defended the 26 EMA but did not see any continuation. On the next day, BNB dropped again lower than the EMA but managed to recover and bounce back above both EMAs. NBSP BNB/USD daily chart. After a healthy consolidation period, BNB seems to be ready to jump into its bullish action again, eyeing up $24 and eventually $27.19, the 2020 high. NBSP BNB for US dollars hour chart. In the 4-hour chart, bulls are trying to push BNB above the 26 EMA but the downtrend is still intact unless BNB can see a breakout above $22.76. NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Rising yields help drive recovery optimism. Sterling slides analysis http://ntvforex.com news ID A66864812 2022 4 p.m. Europe markets in Europe have built on their gains from yesterday with another positive session, as optimism over an apparent plateauing of infection rates creates a momentum all of its own, with the FTSE 100 hitting its highest levels since 23rd NBSP July. The DAX has lagged behind somewhat, largely due to the underperformance of the tech sector, where we've seen some evidence of a little bit of profit-taking, after some fairly decent gains in recent weeks. The best performers today have been oil and gas stocks on the back of optimism over future demand, while rising yields are feeding into a positive performance for banks and financials, with HSBC and Standard Chartered outperforming. Some decent Q2 numbers from NBSP. Chinese e-commerce giant Tencent NBSP appeared to suggest that the recovery in the Greater China region is probably stronger than recent Chinese retail sales data would appear to suggest. Amongst the best performers today, itVää's been a good day, as well as a good first half of the year for NBSP Just Eat Takeaway, which saw revenues surge in the first half to A675M from A179M, as orders rose by 32%. Due to the various economic lockdowns. That did not stop the company posting a first-half loss of A158M, though this was largely driven by the various associated costs related to the recent merger between the two companies. itVää's also been a good day for the Admiral Group share price, after a NBSP decent set of H1 numbers which saw a 30% rise in pre-tax profit of A286.1M. This was despite a fall in first-half turnover of 4%, after the company pledged to repay A100M to its customers since they weren't driving as much as they used to, due to lockdown restrictions. The company also pledged to pay a dividend of 70.5p a share, which included the payment of a 15.5p special dividend, which has seen the shares rise to the top of the FTSE 100. NBSP NBSP shares have hit their highest levels since December last year, after the company said they expected full-year revenue growth to be between 17% and 19% higher, with profit before tax to be in the region of A130M and A150M. On the downside, the tech sector is lagging, with NBSP shares retreating from close to record highs, despite recording revenues of $433.1 million for the first half, largely driven by the working-from-home trend providing a strong tailwind to the desktop business. The company behind the average antivirus freeware brand said that they expected a slightly weaker second half due to a slowdown in the mobile unit business. Profits still came in at $241.4 million, a rise of 2.1% year-on-year. However, it would appear that the slight downgrade to the second half guidance has prompted some banking of profits for a share price that has more than doubled from its March lows. NBSP US markets appear to have shrugged off the last night's late concerns over the prospects of a stimulus deal with a fairly strong rebound on the open, with the focus still on the underlying earnings outlook, after the latest US CPI numbers for July showed that inflationary pressures in the US economy appear to be on the rise. NBSP Tesla's decision to announce a 5-for-1 stock split has not altered the upward momentum in the share price, even though they have tripled in price this year already. Each shareholder will now receive 4 new shares for every single share that they own, with trading due to start on 31st NBSP August. The company appears to be following in the footsteps of Apple, who have performed the same trick twice in the last few years in order to make share ownership more accessible to the ordinary man in the street. NBSP in the race for a vaccine for COVID-19, NBSP Moderna NBSP appears to have won a contract from the US government for $1.5 billion for 100 doses of its own vaccine, with the US government also getting the option for another 400 additional doses. Ford NBSP has said it's cutting more than 10,000 positions across its European operations, while also announcing that it will reduce its number of plants in Europe to 17, by year-end. On the earnings front, we also have the latest earnings numbers from Cisco Systems, LYFT, and Vroom to look forward to, which are due to be released after the closing bell. Cisco NBSP was one of the few companies that did offer guidance when it reported in May, given its role in the technological architecture of the World Wide Web. Its Q3 numbers saw revenues and profits come in above expectations, even though revenues were still down from the same period last year at $12 billion. It has been a steady income earner for a lot of US investors and did see some disruption in its China business last year, due to ongoing US-China trade tensions. As far as Q4 is concerned, management said they expected to see a 10% decline in revenues over the quarter, though profits are expected to come in at $0.70 a share, with the shares seeing a steady performance over the last quarter. The company is also set to be in a good position to capitalize in future investment into the growth and potential of 5G networks. FX has been a little bit of a non-event on currency markets today, with the pound initially shrugging off the GDP numbers, which showed that the UK economy contracted by 20.4%, as a result of the lockdown of the economy at the end of March, and throughout April. As the day has progressed, the pound has started to come under a little bit of selling pressure, presumably over concern over the resilience of the current strength of any recovery. While the headline GDP number will grab all the headlines, along with the inevitable hyperbole about unprecedented drops in output, the UK is hardly unique in this regard, with countries across the world all seeing record declines in economic activity. The likely reason the UK Q2 drop was higher was due to the fact that the UK went into lockdown later than its European counterparts, and also came out later, which means that the total economic effect has been more concentrated in the context of the overall quarter. That hardly constitutes a basket case scenario in comparison to other countries, however that hasn't stopped some people trying to do just that. NBSP since then the picture has improved somewhat, with a decent recovery in the June data, however trying to distill the impact of an economic shock of this magnitude into a single number is always like to present challenges. It is true that the picture has improved in recent months. However, the ripple-out effects are likely to resonate for months and years into the future, and thus even before we even consider the unforeseen human costs of higher structural unemployment as the economy attempts to recover from this once-in-a-lifetime shock. It does appear that Chancellor of the Exchequer understands this, as he warned this morning that a hard times lie ahead. U.S. Treasury yields have seen further gains today in the wake of today's hotter-than-expected U.S. CPI data, with investors trying to work out whether the rise in prices is a symptom of higher demand, or down to problems due to supply-side constraints. Irrespective of the reasons, Higher food prices are a concern at a time when disposable income for consumers is likely to become more constrained. NBSP commodities gold prices have stabilized a touch after yesterday's brutal sell-off, however any rebounds could well be limited in the short term, as we look to try and ascertain a base, against a rising backdrop of concern about rising inflationary pressures, which is contributing to a modest rebound in U.S. yields. Today's U.S. CPI numbers showed a significant rise in inflationary pressures after core CPI jumped to 1.6%, from 1.2% the month before. Crude oil prices have remained fairly well supported despite OPEC cutting its oil demand forecasts for 2020, by 100,000 barrels per day, while also expressing reservations about the outlook for demand in 2021. U.S. inventory data showed that crude stocks fell by 4.51 m barrels per day, against an expectation of a decline of 2.75 m. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. AUD/USD rebounds from weekly lows and prints NBSP fresh highs above 0.7150 http ntvforex.com news ID CDDF 984 minutes ago by Mata as Solord Australian dollar managed to rise back above the important technical level of 0.7150. US dollar back under pressure, DXY drops below 93.30. The AUD/USD pair bottomed during the Asian session at 0.7108, the lowest level since August 3, and then rebounded. After the beginning of the American session jumped to 0.7173 and as of writing, it is trading at 0.716570, holding on to daily gains, supported by a weaker US dollar. The greenback turned to the downside after US data and despite higher US yields. The DXY peaked near 94.00 and bounced to the downside, losing the 93.50 area. At the same time, the 10-year yield rose to 0.686%, the highest since July 7. Economic data from the U.S. showed a higher than expected reading of U.S. CPI. On Tuesday, the PPI also came in above expectations. In Australia, attention turns to the employment report that will be released on Thursday at 01:30 GMT. The net change in employment is forecast to be positive by 40,000 in July. An upbeat reading could boost AUD/USD momentum, moreover considering the market is waiting for a poor outcome. NBSP: the market is now betting against the greenback, but these days, the dollar tends to appreciate during U.S. trading hours, amid optimism about a U.S. economic comeback, after U.S. President Trump said he sees no reason why the country won't growth 20% in Q3, says Valeria Bednarek, chief analyst at NTV Forex. Technical levels: AUD/USD overview today, last price 0.7172, today daily change 0.0029, today daily change percent 0.41, today daily open 0.7143, NBSP trends daily SMA 20 0.7123, daily SMA 50 0.7002, daily SMA 100 0.67, daily SMA 200 0.6708, NBSP levels: previous daily high 0.719, previous daily low 0.7134, previous weekly high 0.7244, previous weekly low 0.7076, previous monthly high 0.7228, previous monthly low 0.6876, daily Fibonacci 38.2%, 0.7155, daily Fibonacci 61.8%, 0.7169, daily pivot point S1 0.7121, daily pivot point S2 0.71, daily pivot point S3 0.7065, daily pivot point R1 0.7177, daily pivot point R2 0.7212, daily pivot point R3 0.7233, NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, Text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. US inflation staged quite a comeback in July, just catching up. NBSP Wells Fargo ntvforex.com news ID 139AEB 4 minutes ago by Mata as Salord data released on Wednesday showed the consumer price index rose 0.6% in July. NBSP according to analysts at Wells Fargo, the rise was underpinned by the largest gain in the core index in more than 50 years. They point out the jump reflects the unwinding of the pandemic-induced price cuts this spring. Key quotes: NBSP consumer prices jumped 0.6%, with an equally large and significantly rarer gain in the core index. Yet July's increase does not mark the start of sustained pickup in inflation. Instead, it is merely catching up from declines this spring. Core inflation is typically the focus of policymakers since it strips out the highly volatile energy and food components. Support from one key component of the PA housing GA is also beginning to weaken. Despite the sharp rise in July, weak demand will keep a lid on inflation in the coming months. Low inflation expectations will also make the Fed's job of 2% inflation harder in this environment. While expectations have perked up a bit recently, they remain depressed by historical standards and are unlikely to have much staying power as the soft inflation environment persists. We expect core CPI, which runs a few tenths hotter than the core PCE deflator, to remain below 2% though 2021 NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Surge in July core CPI is mere catch-up analysis. http://ntvforex.com news ID 1FFC62812 29:48 p.m. Inflation surged 0.6% in July, underpinned by the largest gain in the core index in more than 50 years. Yet the NBSP jump reflects unwinding of the pandemic-induced price cuts this spring. Weak demand will keep the trend tepid. In reverse, inflation staged quite a comeback in July. Consumer prices jumped 0.6%, with an equally large and significantly rarer gain in the core index. Yet July's increase does not mark the start of sustained pickup in inflation. Instead, it is merely catching up from declines this spring. Core inflation is typically the focus of policymakers since it strips out the highly volatile energy and food components. But parts of the core index are also quite volatile, especially in today's age when technology enables businesses to alter prices inexpensively. Many of those categories have also been at the epicenter of the COVID crisis, and after steep cuts this spring were able to gain back some pricing power in July. For example, airfares jumped 5.4%, lodging away from home rose 1.2%, car rentals increased 4.0% and apparel rebounded 1.1%. Other pandemic-induced price declines also unwound, including a 9.3% leap in motor vehicle insurance and 1.3% increase in new and used vehicles now that households are driving more. With a good bit of ground recovered but consumer buying patterns still altered as the virus circulates, gains in the coming months are likely to be more modest. Support from one key component of the PA housing GA is also beginning to weaken. Rent of primary residences rose 0.2% in July, as did the owner-owned component. That marks a slightly stronger gain than last month, but trails behind the pre-pandemic trend. With only 1 in 6 of housing units in the sample surveyed each month, changes in housing market conditions take longer to show up than categories purchased more frequently. We expect shelter inflation to remain weak as job losses have skewed toward renters. Working from home has allowed some white-collar workers to consider less expensive markets and home price appreciation slows. At the same time, price changes are settling down in areas that got a boost from stay-at-home orders, namely grocery stores. Prices for food at home fell 1.1% in July as supply chain issues have alleviated to an extent. Settle in for a prolonged period of weak inflation. Despite the sharp rise in July, weak demand will keep a lid on inflation in the coming months. Even as employment has recovered ground since the spring's widespread shutdowns, the labor market remains in tatters. Many households are unable or unwilling to spend amid the more tenuous jobs situation, questions over the amount and duration of unemployment benefits, and continuing risk of COVID. Low inflation expectations will also make the Fed's job of 2% inflation harder in this environment. While expectations have perked up a bit recently, they remain depressed by historical standards and are unlikely to have much staying power as the soft inflation environment persists. We expect core CPI, which runs a few tenths hotter than the core PCE deflator, to remain below 2% though 2021. Download the full economic indicators NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. FTSE 100 breaks higher despite huge Q2 contraction. Analysis http://ntvforex.com. News ID D6986F812-2023 35:25 p.m. A circa 20% decline in Q2 has done little to dent confidence in UK stocks, with the FTSE 100 reaching a 3-week high. Meanwhile, precious metals are turning higher once more after a historic decline yesterday. UK house builders are enjoying a positive day, with a sharp surge in construction activity helping improve sentiment. FTSE 100 gains over 2%, with huge decline in UK GDP being overlooked in favour of more optimistic forecasts. Precious metals head higher once more. House builders on the rise after boom in construction activity. US stocks joined their European counterparts in the green today, with the S&P 500 moving within touching distance of all-time highs. After months of indecision, we are finally seeing much more conviction from the FTSE 100 as it hits a 3-week highs in the wake of an economic rebound in June. With Q2 growth confirmed at 20.4%, traders have been happy to concentrate on the more current NBSP forecasts that shows a potential 15% rebound in Q3. While such a recovery would leave the economy 10% smaller in September than it was in February, it does at least signal to possibility to regain much of the lost ground by year-end if we do not see another wave of coronavirus-led restrictions. Once again we are looking towards the precious metals as a source of volatility, although the apparent one-way trade came crashing down after gold saw its biggest fall in 7 years yesterday. Nevertheless, today has once again seen the bulls take charge, as we head higher to maintain the long-term uptrend for gold and silver. House builders are surging after the latest piece of positive data that highlighted a sector which is firing on all cylinders in a bid to take advantage of the recent stamp duty holiday. With construction activity hitting a record high of 23.5% in June, there is no doubt the sector is heading in the right direction despite operations grinding to a halt in H1. However, there is still a way to go, with June output still almost 25% lower than pre-crisis levels. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Precious metals mangled analysis http://ntvforex.com. News ID 786,888 12/2022 00:00 p.m. As Ashraf predicted last week in terms of price and time, precious metals took a sharp fall that turned into one of the largest declines in years. Euro and franc are the top performers against USD, and Kiwi and JPY are lagging as indices attempt to retrace late Tuesday's losses. US July CPI came in as expected. Too much new money and too many weak hands was the story of the last leg of the gold market. A reversal in Treasury yields on increasing supply led to a rush to the exits and a 6% decline in gold and 15% drop in silver. The drop undoubtedly means an end to this chapter in the gold rally. There is no major support until $1,800, so the decline isn't necessarily over, but a period of consolidation is overdue. More broadly, the drop in gold came alongside a series of reversals from treasuries to yields. Stocks held up before the S&P 500 fell 0.8% late in the day, with tech doubling the declines. Tech stocks attempted a recovery when Tesla rose 6% following its 5-1 stock split announcement. In Washington, the urgency for another round of stimulus has turned to deadlock. Trump will now try to push through an executive order that will pay $300 week instead of $600 week in special benefits and require states to chip in. Nukin said it would take 2 weeks to get the checks out, and that will mean a lean month for consumers. In the market, the day ahead will show if metals are a canary in the coal mine or separate from broad sentiment. The FX reaction so far has been tepid, but AUD/USD is at the lows of the month, and AUG is typically a poor month for AUD/USD. NZD/USD is another spot to watch as it goes back into lockdown after a family contracted the virus from an unknown source. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Eurozone pace of economic recovery appears to be gathering momentum. A Wells Fargo ntvforex.com news ID CF98631640 GMT by Mata as Salord. The Eurozone economy will contract 8.3% in 2020 according to projections from Wells Fargo analyst. For 2021, they see GDP rising 4%. They have upwardly revised their global growth forecast 0.1 percentage point for 2020 and 0.3 for 2021, to 3.7% and 4.7% respectively. Key quotes NBSP. The level of economic activity remains depressed in most major economies, but a gradual recovery continues to take hold. Through the first 6 months of the year, the average level of Eurozone retail sales is only down 4.2%. In July, the Eurozone PMIs for manufacturing and services rose to 51.8 and 54.7, respectively. With both indices now firmly above 50, the pace of economic recovery in the Eurozone appears to be gathering momentum. On net, a downward revision to Eurozone real GDP growth in 2020 has been more than offset by upward revisions to our expectations for 2021. We do not anticipate any further easing from the ECB. Policymakers have thus far eschewed a deeper foray into negative rates, and we believe the magnitude and pace of asset purchases is sufficient at this time. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Mexico Banxico to cut 50 bps, emphasize large output gap. ATD Securities ntvforex.com news ID D5C7161852 GMT by Aaron Sengezer. Mexico's central bank Banxico is expected to lower its policy rate by 50 basis points on Thursday, note TD Securities analysts, and say that they see the bank emphasizing the large output gap with any hawkish tone focusing on inflation uncertainty. Key quotes: we believe that this will not be the last 50 BP cut by Banxico, particularly given general peso stability. Despite the substantial cumulative easing priced into 1YR rates in Mexico, the peso continues to provide one of the highest one-year implied returns in M, lagging only Rs, TRI, and IDR. With the market only pricing in 25 bps less in easing than our view out to a year, and thanks to a substantial interest rate buffer to the USD, we believe there is little scope for MXN to be hampered by the cut, or by a more dovish-sounding central bank. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. S&P 500 top movers. Tech shares soar. AMD gains 7%. http ntvforex.com. News ID 416345 1836 GMT by Aaron Senghezer. S&P 500 rises sharply, stays a little below all-time highs. Technology shares post strong gains with AMD and QCOM leading the rally. Cruise liner and casino shares turn south amid profit-taking. Following the deep correction witnessed in the second half of the day on Tuesday, the S&P 500 index SPX opened decisively higher on Wednesday and looks to register strong daily gains. As of writing, the SPX was up 1.5% on the day at 3,383 and was a little below the record high it set at 3,393 in late February. Among the 11 major S&P 500 sectors, the technology index is up 2.45% on the day. On the other hand, the financials index is down 0.5% as the only major sector in the negative territory. S&P 500 top movers advanced Micro Devices Inc. AMD, which reached a $100 billion market cap last week as its shares soared on the back of upbeat second quarter earnings figures, is the top performer on Wednesday. Following a correction that lasted for 3 days, the AMD is up 7.05% on the day at $82.30. Among the other tech shares, NBSP Qualcomm Inc. QCOM is up nearly 6% on the day at $115.30. Earlier in the day, Deutsche Bank announced that it raised its price target for QCOM from $115 to $127. On the other hand, cruise liner and casino stocks, which posted impressive gains in the past few trading days, are falling as investors seem to be booking their profits. At the moment, Carnival Corp CCL, Wynn Resorts Ltd. Wynn and NBSP Royal Caribbean Cruises Ltd. RCL shares are down 4.3%, 3.97%, and 3.93%, respectively. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. AUD/USD meets 4HR channel resistance in its plight for higher ground. ntvforex.com. News ID 7F8F1826 GMT by Ross J. Berland. AUD/USD is trying to rally into the wind, propped up on elevated risk appetite and higher equities. The US dollar is struggling to maintain a meaningful bid, but there are pages missing. NBSP in the bull's playbook for AUD. Technically, 4HR channel resistance could be a hard nut to crack. AUD/USD is trading at 0.7166, struggling to shake off the bears as it advances some 0.34% on the day within a 4HR bear channel, rallying sharply from the lows of 0.7109 to a high of 0.7175. The move is a reflection of the US dollar's inability to hold onto any meaningful ground following its recovery attempt measured by the DXY down in the mid-92 ranges. NBSP. The dollar fell from a one-week high on Wednesday, as political wrangling over a stimulus package for the US NBSP economy halted run higher its month, so far. There is an emphasis on the US and emerging market stocks, both for which risk appetite, positively NBSP so, and the US dollar, negatively so, are NBSP correlated in opposite ways. NBSP higher equities supporting AUD. The Aussie attracts demand on sentiment for which drives the stock markets higher, and today we have seen investors return to support equities in droves. NBSP at a high of 3,83.21 scored today. The S&P 500 SPX is once again flirting with its all-time closing high at 3,386.15. Just shy of the 3,393.15 NBSP record intraday high, both for which were NBSP registered on February 19. However, the SPX is getting a Big 5 boost from NBSP, Apple AAPL, Microsoft MSFT, Amazon.com AMZ and NBSP, and Alphabet Google and Facebook FB. Shortly after noon, these 5 stocks were accounting for around 40% of the SPX's rise today. And with this, small caps, the banks and energy are lagging. Some would argue, therefore, that the surge in the indexes is not a true reflection of fundamentals and may wish to caution chasing the surge. Cutting the pie into slices, hardly the basis for strong fundamentals. Moreover, stock splits have been NBSP announced by Apple and Tesla, which have boosted demand for shares. However, such a move could prompt other companies with high price shares such as AMNZ, Google, to consider such a tact, but that is not necessarily a bullish outlook for the stock market, at least from a fundamental standpoint. Cutting the pizza into slices so more investors can share the same pie is not affecting the underlying value of the business, nor is it attracting investors who are concerned for anything more than technical, momentum and non-fundamental drivers. NBSP meanwhile, on the data front, stronger than expected US NBSP Consumer Price Index numbers. NBSP briefly lifted the dollar against a basket of currencies, including the Australian dollar. The CPI showed a rise of NBSP 0.6% last month after rebounding 0.6% in June. Excluding the volatile food and energy components, the CPI also jumped 0.6% last month. That was the largest gain since January 1991 and followed a 0.2% rise in June. Stalemate on the NBSP US NBSP stimulus package. However, NBSP a drag on the greenback stays with the market's focus on the US NBSP stimulus package. US NBSP Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin said on Wednesday that the White House and top Democrats in Congress may not be able to reach a deal on coronavirus aid, in the 5th day without talks on the stalemate blocking relief to tens of millions of Americans. NBSP RBA missed its chance. Meanwhile, the Reserve Bank of Australia may NBSP have just missed its only chance this summer to talk down the Aussie in the face of inflationary headwinds. At last week's RBA policy meeting, Governor Lowe signalled that he was fairly content with the level of the NBSP AUD. In the statement on monetary policy, the RBA commented that the Australian dollar is now in a range that is broadly consistent with its fundamental determinants, namely the terms of trade and the differential between interest rates in Australia and rates in major advanced economies. NBSP given the grim backdrop for global growth and Australia long-standing difficulties in promoting wage inflation, analysts at Rabobank raise their concerns for relying too strongly on the RBA's laid-back approach. The RBA has been dubbed as the most hawkish central bank in the G10 by some commentators, and the coming months are likely to test the central bank's resolve in maintaining this position. While the comments from the RBA are supportive for NBSP AUD USD NBSP in the near term, we see risk of a pullback below 0.70 in a 3 mth to 6 mth view. AUD USD levels. The 4-hour chart below shows that there could be some difficulty in shaking off the bears at this juncture. The monthly chart offers strong resistance also, with a focus on downside structure NBSP and the confluence with a 61.8% Fibonacci retracement. NBSP AUD USD overview today. Last price 0.7168 today. Daily change 0.0025 today. Daily change percent 0.35 today. Daily open 0.7143 NBSP trends. Daily SMA 20 0.7123 daily SMA 50 0.7002 daily SMA 10 0.67 daily SMA 20 0.6708 NBSP levels. Previous daily high 0.719, previous daily low 0.7134, previous weekly high 0.7244, previous weekly low 0.7076, previous monthly high 0.7228, previous monthly low 0.6876, daily Fibonacci 38.2%, 0.7155, daily Fibonacci 61.8%, 0.7169, daily pivot point S1 0.7121, daily pivot point S2 0.71. Daily pivot point S3 0.7065, daily pivot point R1 0.7177, daily pivot point R2 0.7212, daily pivot point R3 0.7233. NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. USD CAD bears stay in control as US dollar wilts in its recovery attempt. ntvforex.com news ID 7E0BBD 31 minutes ago by Ross J. Berland. USD CAD bears stay within daily lows vicinity and lower grounds yet. US dollar under pressure from all sides as risk sentiment remains elevated. USD CAD is in the hands of the bears, although NBSP the price attempts to correct from the daily lows. At the time of writing, USD CAD is trading at 1.3247 between a range of 1.3229 and 1.3347. NBSP risk on sentiment in markets on Wednesday have undermined the US dollar's recent recovery, despite a bet in the consumer price index today. NBSP prices trended up in the US in July with the headline CPI up 0.6% MOM. This was double NBSP the rise expected. Core CPI also rose 0.6%, its largest rise in nearly 30 years. Clothing prices lifted 1.1% while used cars gained 2.3% and fuel prices shot up 5.6%. This data and the PPI released a day earlier were both stronger than expected, but with the virus still raging in the US it may be some time before there is a sustained improvement in economic activity, analysts at ANZ Bank explained. NBSP the loonie has been on the march this month, and in the absence of domestic data, the currency will be highly NBSP reliant on geopolitical developments driving risk sentiment. However, while US stocks were moving to test the 2020 highs, this was despite the fact that NBSP congressional negotiations, relating to aid for Americans suffering the economic fallout of COVID-19 have broken down. An agreement on the U.S. fiscal stimulus package might have provided some positive spillover on CAD, which may incidentally need clear signs of slowing U.S. contagion to unlock more upside across the board. So far, however, it is not to be. U.S. NBSP Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin said on Wednesday that the White House and top Democrats in Congress may not be able to reach a deal on coronavirus aid, in the fifth day without talks on the stalemate blocking relief to tens of millions of Americans. NBSP USD CAD levels. USD CAD overview today. Last price 1.3251 today. Daily change 0.0050 today. Daily change percent 0.38 today. Daily open 1.3301. NBSP trends. Daily SMA 201.3406 daily SMA 501.3498 daily SMA 1001.375 daily SMA 2001.3531 NBSP levels. Previous daily high 1.3361 previous daily low 1.3271 previous weekly high 1.3451 previous weekly low 1.3234 previous monthly high 1.3646 previous monthly low 1.3331 daily Fibonacci 38.2% 1.3305 daily Fibonacci 61.8% 1.3326 daily pivot point S1 1.3261 daily pivot point S2 1.3221 daily pivot point S3 1.3171 daily pivot point R1 1.3351 daily pivot point R2 1.3401 daily pivot point R3 1.3441 NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Forex today. Optimism weighed on the dollar. ntvforex.com news ID 1428E4 39 minutes ago by NTV Forex team. Here is what you need to know on Thursday, August 13. The dollar edged lower on the back of prevalent optimism, as investors preferred safe haven assets. Global indexes closed in the green, while U.S. Treasury yields ticked marginally higher to a fresh one-month high. The greenback appreciated only against the JPY, with the pair reaching 107.00. The U.S. Congress has made no progress on a next aid package, but the market seems not worried about the issues. No news in the US-China war of words further supported the positive sentiment. Coronavirus in the US. The number of new cases has been put on doubt as the country recovered an average of 52,800 new daily cases over the last week, down 19% from the previous weekly average. Testing, in the same period, declined 12%. UK data weight on the pound. Q2 GDP came in at 21.7%, slightly better than anticipated yet signaling the extension of coronavirus harm to the economy. Total business investment in the same period contracted 31.4%, much worse than the 0.1% expected. Also, the June goods trade balance posted a deficit of a 5.12 NBSP. On a positive note, industrial production was up 9.3% in June, and down 12.5% when compared to a year earlier, both numbers better than anticipated. Gold bottomed at $1,862 a troy ounce, recovering some ground afterwards to close the day unchanged around $1,913 a troy ounce. Australia will publish its July employment data (NBSP) at the beginning of the Asian session. Cryptocurrency market news. Venezuela is looking into using crypto to collect taxes. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Federal Reserve Bank President Mary Daly Fed is committed to reaching 2% inflation target. ntvforex.com news ID DF5BF9 42 minutes ago by Ross J. Berland. Reuters reports San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank President Mary Daly saying NBSP on Wednesday that the enhanced unemployment benefits provided to jobless Americans helped to offset the negative demand shock caused by the virus and there is little evidence the payments deterred people from seeking new work, the Fed official also said. The economic recovery will be slow and gradual, depending on the virus, and that she is not expecting a V-shaped recovery. Any policies that can encourage consumers to keep spending during the downturn will help the recovery, Daly said during a virtual event organized by the Economic Club of Las Vegas. Keynotes. Fed's Daly says COVID is going to accelerate workplace trends and leave some workers without the right skills. Says as we get control of the virus we need to continue to provide support to get Americans back to work. Says there is very little evidence that extra unemployment benefits are deterring people from going back to work. Says to the extent that we can have families continue to spend it offsets negative demand shock of virus. Says Fed is making purchases in corporate bond market because businesses need liquidity. Says Fed is committed to reaching 2% inflation target and she has confidence they will reach it in the future. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. USD JPY bulls falter at critical resistance, dollar running out of support. ntvforex.com news ID 7231391918 GMT by Ross J. Berland. USD JPY meets a tough resistance level in the 107 area. Bearish fundamentals persist for the NBSP US dollar, which could equate to stringer yens. USD JPY is trading at 106.84, having been rejected at a critical NBSP 107 area, with price now moving info NBSP consolidation with bearish cards stacked against it. At the time of writing, USD JPY has been trading between 106.44 and 107.01. NBSP for the near term, there is little going for the greenback as it struggles to maintain NBSP a meaningful bid, reflected in the DXY that while holds above a 2-year low hit last Thursday is down 0.3% after shedding gains made in Asian trading. NBSP as we head towards the last trading hours on Wall Street, the DXY trades AR 93.43 within NBSP a range of 93.27 the low and 93.91 the high. NBSP. The dollar faces headwinds from higher equities and lack of follow-through NBSP in yields. NBSP. Moderate rises in NBSP real yields are hardly the basis for a full-blown resurgence in the dollar. It is a lower for a longer story for yields as NBSP lower real NBSP rates. NBSP are the central bank lever to support the recovery and compensate for supply. This is a theme that is not going to vanish anytime soon. NBSP instead, it can be expected to see lower yields, more QE and dovish Federal Reserve NBSP forward guidance this autumn. NBSP. If there is no movement in the negotiations soon, the Fed's concerns are quite likely to have an impact on the dollar sooner or later, FX analysts at Commerzbank said in a noted. Also, the trade war demand for the greenback could come undone also. NBSP. White House economic advisor Kudlow said China was fulfilling its trade deal commitments on agricultural purchases, an encouraging tone ahead of the formal high-level review due Saturday. As for stocks, U.S. benchmarks lifted NBSP the most in a month on Wednesday on continued bets for more stimulus in the United States, even as that was put in doubt late on Tuesday. Recently battered technology stocks reclaimed leadership on Wall Street. The benchmark S&P 500 was again brushing against its record highs, although all may not be so fundamentally bullish in this regard as stock splits do not necessarily attract long-term investment. NBSP CPI offers a temporary lift to the greenback. Meanwhile, on the data front, stronger than expected US NBSP Consumer Price Index numbers. NBSP briefly lifted the dollar against a basket of currencies, including the yen. The CPI showed a rise of NBSP 0.6% last month after rebounding 0.6% in June. Excluding the volatile food and energy components, the CPI also jumped 0.6% last month. That was the largest gain since January 1991 and followed a 0.2% rise in June. USD JPY levels as per yesterday's analysis. Here, and in the chart below, the pair is destined to find strong resistance in the 107 highs. NBSP. The pair will look to a retracement back to a daily support structure if this resistance holds up. He test of time and bullish commitments. NBSP. 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 Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. U.S. retail sales July preview. Expectations of moderation may be overstated. Analysis http://ntvforex.com. News ID D8401F8122028 0240 p.m. Sales recovery expected to moderate in July. NBSP from historic gains in May and June. Non-farm payrolls expansion in July stronger than anticipated. Initial jobless claims closed July with a 17% drop in filings. Consumer inflation accelerated in July, suggesting stronger demand. Industrial production predicted to rise 3% in July. Dollar likely to receive a boost if sales beat expectations. The American consumer has spent almost double what analysts expected in the last 2 months. Chances are that record will continue in July despite forecasts for a sharp drop in retail sales. NBSP better than expected payroll expansion in July. A steep decline in unemployment claims and rising inflation all suggest an unimpaired U.S. consumer. Retail sales are forecast to rise 1.9% in July following the combined 25.7% gain in June, 7.5% and May 18.2%. Those months more than recovered the 22.9% lockdown collapse in March and April. The combined forecasts for May and June were 13%, just over the half the actual increase. Purchases in the control group category, which is the Bureau of Economic Analysis a consumption component, are forecast to rise 0.8% in July after June's 5.6% and Maya's 10.1% increases. Purchases dropped 12.4% in April, 12.4% and rose 3.2% in March. Sales excluding automobiles are projected to climb 1.3% in July following gains of 7.3% in June, 12.1% in May and losses of 15.3% in April and 3.8% in March. Initial jobless claims and non-farm payrolls. The 10% jump in initial jobless claims from 1.307 million in the week of July 10 to 1.435 million on July 24 raised many concerns that the second wave of COVID cases in a number of states, particularly the large economies of California, Texas, and Florida, was impairing or halting the recovery from the widespread pandemic closures in March and April. NBSP initial jobless claims. NTV Forex. The higher rate of unemployment claims had been expected to continue in the final week of the month at 1.430 million. NBSP instead claims fell 17% to 1.186 million on July 31, their lowest level of the COVID era. Non-farm payrolls had been forecast to drop by 2/3 in July from 4.8 million to 1.6 million. NBSP. The largest factor in the decline being the expected impact of the spreading second wave of COVID diagnosis. NBSP. Here too the effect of the rollbacks of opening measures in several states was overstated. Payrolls added 1.763 million workers, 10% more than expected. It appears that the mid-July rise in jobless claims was restricted in time and amount. The August 7th week is expected to fall another 5.5% to 1.120 million. NBSP payrolls were likewise far less affected by the new incidence of COVID cases than anticipated. NBSP. Of the 22.16 million workers who lost their jobs in March and April, 42% 9.253 million have been rehired. CPI and consumer sentiment. Consumer price increases in July. NBSP doubled its forecast. NBSP overall CPI rose 0.6% as it did in June, twice as much as the 0.3% forecast. CPI.NTV Forex core inflation was also 0.6% higher on the month, 3 times its June rate and the July estimate. The annual rates have not yet fully recovered from the shutdown plunge in demand. The headline rate is expected to be 1% in July, less than half its February rate of 2.3%. The core yearly rate is forecast to be 1.6% in July, 2/3 of its February rate. Higher consumer inflation in July implies steady or rising demand, which means retail sales are unlikely to have fallen far from their June increase of 7.3%. Consumer sentiment fell in July. NBSP. The Michigan Survey of Sentiment dropped NBSP from 78.1 in June to 72.5 in July and is expected to slip to 72 in August. NBSP. Industrial production. Industrial production has been a laggard in the recovery. After plummeting 4.6% in March and 12.5% in April, May returned just 1.4% and June 5.4%, leaving a 10.1% shutdown deficit. NBSP. The formulation of the 3% July forecast was likely affected by the economic slowdown that was presumed early in the month when the survey was taken. NBSP. The GDP now estimate for the third quarter from the Atlanta Fed has moved steadily higher from its first reading of 11.9% on July 31 to 20.5% on August 7. NBSP. The next iteration is after retail sales on August 14. Conclusion. And the dollar non-farm payrolls and the late-month improvement in jobless claims suggest that the labor markets continued to be productive of rehiring in July. NBSP. The jump in inflation implies steady or rising consumer demand. NBSP. Employment is the most important factor in consumption. NBSP. If U.S. households are reasonably confident of maintaining their income, they have always been reliable consumers. NBSP. The only caveat to this consumption picture is the drop in consumer sentiment in July. NBSP. It is possible that, given the actual job and inflation numbers, the decline was more a product of the fear NBSP of the second wave cases than a measure of genuine economic impact. NBSP. The sell-off in the US dollar over the past month. NBSP was predicated on the second wave COVID impact on the economy. NBSP. If retail sales do not in fact drop as anticipated, the currency will have another data point for a stronger USD. NBSP. 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 Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, Text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Even as pandemic drags on, consumer poised for strong Q3 analysis. http://ntvforex.com News ID 23D3B981220275551 p.m. The bottom fell out under spending Indiana March, but after back-to-back surges in subsequent months, consumer spending is on track for record Q3 growth. Goods spending has fully recovered. Services still has a way to go. 2 out of 3 in the black. But PCE is all about services. The consumer shapes the economic outlook more than any other factor. In the midst of a pandemic that has completely transformed the way people live, work and consume, the consumer outlook is more consequential than ever. In a typical recession, services spending holds up, while big-ticket purchases on durable goods typically are put off until better times. It has been the opposite in this cycle, as we NBSP anticipated. The forced thrift of quarantine and stay-at-home orders may have emptied out restaurants and hair salons, leaving services outlays still in a deep hole relative to the pre-recession peak, but services spending has risen more than $350 billion at an annualized rate in each of the past 2 months. Goods spending is on the rise as well. In fact, despite all of the hand-wringing over the shape of the recovery, some parts of the consumer economy have already fully recovered. Durable goods outlays are already more than 9% above their pre-pandemic level, with some categories like recreational goods and vehicles up even more than that. Non-durable goods like food and gas, which are consumed more quickly, really only had one down month in this pandemic, which was in April after the panic buying at grocery stores the prior month set the category up for a payback month. Since then, non-durable spending has been on the rise. See you in September. The upshot of all of this is consumer spending is coming into the third quarter running at an all-out sprint. Even with an interruption in unemployment benefits, case counts that are still rising in parts of the country, and slowing momentum in the labor market recovery, consumer spending is on track to post a record increase in the third quarter. Our analysis finds that even if all 3 categories of spending were to come to a complete stop in July and remain stuck in neutral in August and September, personal consumption expenditures PCE would still come in with a growth rate of about 27%. This is because Q2 ended on such better footing than where it was after the bottom fell out under spending in March. When we updated our forecast this month, we did so cognizant of the fact that a re-emergence of the virus, particularly in some hard-hit states in the South and West, likely means a slow-walked reopening in those states. Our concern is that this never-before-seen climate for consumers could force some services spending back into negative territory in the months ahead, so we actually have some monthly declines baked into our forecast in the much larger services category. Even with those declines, continued growth in goods outlays suggests that Q3 consumer spending will come in at an annualized growth rate of nearly 30%. If service spending proves more resilient than we presently expect, PCE could be even stronger. Download the full report. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. AUD/USD forecast marginally up ahead of critical Australian data. Analysis http://ntvforex.com News ID 2246D581220273736 p.m. AUD/USD current price 0.7167 Australian wages grew at the slowest pace since the records began in September 1997. Australia is expected to have added 40,000 new job positions in July. AUD/USD is heading towards 0.7200. Further gains will depend on data. The AUD/USD pair has managed to post a modest intraday advance on Wednesday, after falling to a fresh weekly low of 0.7108. The early decline followed the release of Australian data, as the country published the Q2 wage price index, which was up by 0.2% in the quarter, and rose 1.8% when compared to the second quarter of 2019. That would be the slowest pace of growth on record, and the weakest reading since the records began in September 1997. The pair later recovered on the back of the positive momentum of equities, as most global indexes closed in the green. During the upcoming Asian session, Australia will release its latest employment figures. The country is anticipated to have recovered just 40,000 job positions in July, way below the 210.8k added in June. The unemployment rate is expected to have ticked higher to 7.8% from 7.4% in the previous month, while the participation rate is seen rising from 64% to 64.4%. NBSP. The market is anticipating a dismal reading, which means that the numbers need to diverge strongly from forecast to have a negative impact on the Aussie. AUD-USD short-term technical outlook. The AUD-USD pair is trading at around 0.7160, neutral to bullish in the short term. The 4-hour chart shows that the price has advanced above the 20 and 100 SMA, both converging around 0.7150. Technical indicators, in the meantime, entered positive territory but lost directional strength, now flat within neutral levels. Support levels 0.7145, 0.7110, 0.7070. NBSP resistance levels 0.7185, 0.7220, 0.7260. View live chart for the AUD-USD NBSP. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors. Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. GBP/USD forecast pressure mounts. Critical support at 1.2980. Analysis http://ntvforex.com. News ID 75C7BC 8/12/2020 7:32:19 p.m. GBP USD current price 1.3031. UK Q2 gross domestic product contracted a record 21.7%. Risk appetite limited $S gains, saving the day for GBP USD. GBP USD is turning bearish in the short term, but so far holds above 1.3000. The GBP USD pair fell this Wednesday to 1.3005, a fresh weekly low, as the pound got hit by the record economic contraction reported in Q2. The gross domestic product for the 3 months to June came in at 21.7%, slightly better than anticipated, yet signaling the extension of coronavirus harm to the economy. Total business investment in the same period contracted 31.4%, much worse than the 0.1% expected. Also, the June goods trade balance posted a deficit of a 5.12 BNBSP. On a positive note, industrial production was up 9.3% in June, and down 12.5% when compared to a year earlier, both numbers better than anticipated. Risk appetite played against the greenback, helping the pair to settle around the 1.3030 level, marginally lower for the day. The UK wanted to publish relevant macroeconomic data this Thursday. GBP USD short-term technical outlook. From a technical point of view, the GBP USD pair is poised to extend its decline. The 4-hour chart shows that a mildly bearish has contained intraday attempts to advance, although the 100 SMA maintains its bullish slope below the current level. Technical indicators, in the meantime, remain within negative levels, with modest downward slopes. The bearish momentum will likely accelerate on a break below 1.2980, still the most relevant support level. Support levels 1.2980, 1.2940, 1.2895. Resistance levels 1.3065, 1.3105, 1.3150. NBSP view live chart for the GBP USD. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors.